Hey, what's up guys? Imagine getting reincarnated into a dating sim where you're actually the hidden final boss, destined to be defeated by the protagonist. You try to live a quiet life, however, on the first day of the academy, you're forced to reveal in front of all the students that you've reached the max level, 99. With that, and causing a commotion with your dark magic, the main character now has her sights set on you. This is the fun, wacky, exciting story of the Demon Lord. So let's get started and watch the story unfold. But before we begin, that follows the game's protagonist, Alicia. If you want to skip to the part where we follow the actual protagonist, go to this time or click the first link in the description. Alright, now let's begin. Alicia Einlight arrives by carriage into town, where she's newly enrolled into the Royal Academy as a first year. She spots a sickly granny, who she decides to heal using her light magic. But when she tells them this is her first day in the dorms, the granny's daughter hurries her because the academy's gates close at 6 p.m. Alicia runs as the bell tolls and trips right in front of the gate, where Oswald closes it and tells her school rules are no entry permitted after 6. The two exchange introductions, and we learn even though he's a first year as well, he's been helping weekly with school duties. Then, while proclaiming the rules are absolute, he tells Alicia she'll have to look for lodging in town tonight. Alicia gets upset because the entrance ceremony is tomorrow and tells him she needs to get into the dorms, especially since she doesn't have much money. While looking at her tattered bag, Oswald figures she must be the one commoner who was admitted this year. He does sympathize with her situation, but tells her to just give up, but she doesn't back down and begins whining. This is when Oswald begins pushing his glasses and tells her that just between them, there's a part of the wall on the eastern side that's crumbling, where students who break curfew often come and go from. This makes Alicia light up, and as they chat further, she learns Oswald is from the Grimsard family, and his father is a well-known cabinet minister. With Oswald softening up, Alicia decides to call her new friend Oz for short, which leaves him blushing. As she makes her way to the crumbling wall, she sees a boy named William already climbing it. He reaches out his hand to her, knowing she broke curfew too. As he guides her to the dorms, he shows her the drinks the older guys made him get as sort of a school initiation rule. They then continue their walk, he trips through one of the roof windows, and Alicia falls as well while trying to pull him up. This is when she crashes on top of Edwin Valschein, Will's childhood friend and second prince of Valschein Kingdom, leaving Alicia completely surprised. The principal scolds the two for all the trouble they've caused, but William tries to deflect blame on Alicia since he got distracted talking to her. But this doesn't stop the principal from confiscating the drinks. He then gives Alicia a warning since she was only admitted into the school with a scholarship due to her possessing the rare light magic, and both of the students are to be punished with extra school duties for a week. After they leave, however, the principal thinks to himself that Alicia's magic is the kingdom's last hope against the Demon Lord. Later in the dorms, Alicia sits in her bed, depressed over all the mischief she caused on her first day. She hears people outside shouting there's an intruder that needs to be captured, and when she peeks out her window, the faculty warns all the students to stay inside. Alicia is a little scared, but also relieved since the intruders are most likely targeting the other students, since they're all nobles. But she couldn't be more wrong, as she's alerted to some rumbling outside her window. She grabs her broom and begins to whack the mysterious intruder, only to have her mouth covered to see it's Prince Edwin. He explains there's stuff going on, but he can't explain the details, and peeks through the window when he hears the faculty still looking for him. He can't leave yet, so he asks Alicia to let him hide here. The two sit in the dark, and Edwin apologizes for burdening her. But to Alicia, this all feels like a dream, since she's never talked to a member of the royal family before, and the prince jokes, wondering if all commoners are as violent as her, giving the two a laugh. Then, with the coast clear, he takes off, wishing Alicia good luck at tomorrow's ceremony. The ceremony comes, and as Alicia walks, her new friends smile at her. All is going well, until she bumps into a menacing aura. But it turns out to be just a black-haired girl who knows her name for some reason. The girl asks Alicia if she's feeling well, then everyone takes their seats. The principal then gives a welcome speech, and then we turn to Edwin, Alicia, Oswald, and William facing off against the black-haired Yumiella. She shoots her black magic, and the party staves it off. Then, when Alicia counters with light magic, Yumiella gets blown away, and we see text dialogue where Alicia and Edwin embrace. On the other side, a girl just finished the otome game called Light Magic and the Hero, which features all the characters from before. It's your typical dating sim, where you play as the heroine at the Magic Academy who deepens her relationship with conquerable characters, and levels up to eventually defeat the Demon Lord. And after defeating the Demon Lord, the true final boss appears, which is Yumiella Dolkness, the villainess with dark magic that bullies Alicia throughout the game, which is actually now the same girl who was behind the computer screen, who, at the age of 15, is just beginning to enter the Royal Academy. She regained her memories of her past life at the age of 5, where she had got truck-cooned while attending college, and now reincarnated in the game world she once played. This kingdom was founded by the hero and saint who defeated the black-haired demon lord, and from that point on, black hair was seen as unlucky and even a symbol of evil, where even being born into a noble family, Yumiella's servants were always cautious of her, and she has no memories of ever meeting her in-game parents who live at the capital. With her doom impending, she lays in bed, wondering what the point of existing is, but remembering she should be stronger than everyone, she can't help but feel excited, because she doesn't have to end the same way as the original Villainess. She can instead lay low and enjoy a peaceful school life, and avoid all the game's main characters, so everyone can live happily ever after. However, she still decides to level up, just in case she needs to defeat the Demon Lord. She defeats a slime using her dark magic, and gets a magic stone she can sell for money. She then punches the air, noticing her lighter body after leveling up. Fired up with her gamer blood boiling, she was the type to fixate on whatever she was doing, so she snuck out of the mansion every day to defeat monsters and level up, and selling magic stones to make money, so she could buy an EXP boosting amulet. She eventually entered a dungeon and conquered it easily, acquiring a flute that could call monsters at any time, and day after day, she would farm monsters efficiently for XP until she turned 15. When she arrived at the school building, it looked just as it did in the game. Exhausted, she finally laid on her bed. She reads a little note from her father, telling her she needs to befriend many noble boys. That way, one would marry her and become an heir to their family, which she isn't too keen to do. She steps outside and watches Alicia be late to the 6 p.m. gate, just like the original game, and walks away reminding herself she needs to avoid those four to enjoy a peaceful life. At the entrance ceremony, the other students keep staring at her, most likely due to her black hair. The faculty begins assessing the students' levels, with Alicia first being revealed as level 1. Then, when William gets assessed, everyone cheers over him being level 10. Yumiella never checked her own level, but can only imagine after defeating the boss horseman, she must be way higher. She gets called up next and nervously touches the crystal, and everyone is shocked to see she's level 99. Well, time to say goodbye to her peaceful life. Being a level so high, it's never been heard before. Many mouths staring agape, while Alicia is a nervous wreck. Yumiella never imagined her level to be this high. The principal tries to calm everyone down by telling them this must be an error, so they bring in another level measuring tool and have her test again. But of course, there's no changes whatsoever. As the students continue to talk amongst themselves, the magic teacher asks if Yumiella knew her level was this high, all while she's thinking she can't keep her being the overpowered boss a secret anymore. She'll have to run and flee to another country. She then openly admits that she believes her level is correct. The blonde teacher then says there's no problem with the magic tool itself and accuses Yumiella of tampering with it, but she denies the allegation. The school faculty thinks she's lying, because in order to level up, she would have had to kill monsters, causing the students to all pile in on the lying accusation. How could this high school girl be killing monsters when none of them have? The principal quiets them down and tells them all Yumiella can prove herself when classes begin. He then has her give her introductions to the students, and she sits herself down. She couldn't help but think Alicia would have had the most attention since she's the commoner with light magic, but unfortunately, Yumiella stole the show unintentionally. The entrance ceremony is then followed by a buffet party, where Yumiella is completely outcast of standing out. She decides to leave early. As she leaves, William chases after her, asking what trick she used back there to fake her level rating, and she gets annoyed with this idiot pain in the neck. He calls her a disgrace as a noble, and begins insulting her, until Edwin interjects. Understanding how William feels being outshined, but also saying this isn't the right place to make a fuss. Yumiella then proceeds to politely introduce herself, but when Edwin hears the name Dolkness, he makes a snide comment under his breath, calling her a central wannabe. Edwin explains he's known William to have trained harder than anyone when he was growing up. That's how William reached level 10 before he even entered the school. So in the eyes of Edwin, Yumiella trampled all over his hard-earned achievement. Yumiella felt a little bad, but she wondered why everyone just assumed she cheated. Not that she can really blame them for being suspicious. She affirms a statement that she is in fact level 99, causing the two boys to gasp in disbelief. Then the third idiot, Oswald, appears just to say she should come up with a more believable lie. Yumiella knows all three of these guys are conquerable love interests in the original video game. Edwin, the magic swordsman and prince of the kingdom, William, the musclehead with a strong sense of justice and a short temper, and Oswald, the magic prodigy. Although the trio were very popular amongst all the girls that played the game, Yumiella personally never had any interest in any of them, and would also like to avoid contact with them so she doesn't trigger any of the in-game events. The prince tells her to prove her level 99 status, but it's clear to Yumiella he didn't think the idea through clearly. She doesn't want to make a bigger commotion, but she's probably so powerful she could easily destroy the entire country. She tries to deflect by saying, speaking of light magic, isn't there a commoner who uses light attributes? Look, she's over there! As she points to Alicia and tells the three boys that girl seems to be struggling to fit in with everyone as well. The three dumb f***s basically tell Yumiella they'll get her next time and go over to Alicia to hit on her. Back in her dorm, Yumelia's maid Rita asks why she's returned early, but of course it's because there's no one there she's interested in spending her time with, causing Rita to scold Yumiella since Duke Dolkness wants his daughter to find a husband. Yumiella then asks about what it means to be what Edwin called her earlier, a central wannabe. This causes Rita to gasp, and Yumiella learns it's definitely something that refers to the Dolkness family line. Rita then explains the two types of nobles: central nobles that have power here in the capital, and regional nobles that have power over lands outside this area. A central wannabe is a regional noble who spends all their time here in the capital, even though they hold no power here, causing Yumiella to pick up that it refers to useless nobles who spend all their time goofing off in the capital, not doing any work, leaving their actual plots of land governed by employees. But Rita has no idea how to respond to the truth of how lazy Yumelia's parents are. On the first day of class, Yumiella found herself isolated, which she prefers since she can basically be a background character for the next 3 years. But unfortunately, with her being level 99, her hearing is max level as well, so she can hear all the students talking shit about her. Yumiella then notices the three simps hovering over Alicia coming to class. She notes that if this were playing out like the original game, Alicia shouldn't be this close to any of them yet. Yumiella wonders if the story's changed since she sent the boys to her. Alicia then notices Yumiella looking at them and gives her a nasty look, leaving Yumiella wondering why that is. We move to the first afternoon class, which was a lesson on practical swordsmanship, and even with a stone-cold expression, Yumiella is internally excited that she gets to hold a real sword for the first time. It reminds her of a toy sword souvenir she once got on a school field trip, an item any gamer would have wanted to have. The teacher has Yumiella and William duel to assess their skills, and with most of the students cheering on William and him psyching himself up, Yumiella pondered on how she could hold back from accidentally killing him. As the strongest villainess, Yumiella fought the fraud, the strongest student. She began to take her stance. William shrunk back in fear. Then Yumiella said, "Stand proud, William. You are strong," causing him to lose balance and fall on his face. The students and teacher were blown away, but William refused to accept his loss. However, with a tiny stroke, Yumiella sends him flying away. She picks him up gently, asking the teacher if she should take William to the nurse's office. However, the teacher tells them he'll do it, so everyone should practice sword swings in the meantime, with absolutely no duels whatsoever. Yumiella simply looks at her fellow students, and they all shrink back in fear. She thinks there's no reason to be. However, with the fact that William hasn't been chopped into pieces, should be proof enough she was holding back. She then tries practice swings, which cause furious gales to blow against the students. The next class begins on practical magic. The test for students to use their magic against this practice dummy, that way the teacher can assess their magic skills. We learn that in this world, the 4 basic magic attributes are fire, wind, water, and earth. Since the principal says those who lie are not fit for the academy, the principal states this will probably make her life in the kingdom difficult as well, but Yumiella nonchalantly tells them it wouldn't be so bad to move to another country. This is when the magic teacher pleads for Yumelia's case, since she not only wields the rare dark magic, but also destroyed the sturdy training dummy. Her expulsion would be a huge loss for the kingdom, and this is the first time someone is convinced Yumiella is actually level 99. The principal is still unconvinced, however, saying Yumiella will really have to prove it to him, and Edwin smirks at the idea of Yumelia's expulsion. This is when the magic teacher begs Yumiella to use her full strength, and with such a humble plea, Yumiella finds it hard to refuse. She then tells them she'll shoot her magic into the sky. She asks for Edwin's permission, because if something bad happens, she wants him to take responsibility. So he humors her, since he doesn't believe her magic would do anything. This is when she decides to use her strongest magic spell, the one only the Demon Lord and her could use in-game. And even holding back, the black hole shocks everyone as it sucks everything to a potential everyone in the country. Yumiella retracts it and smugly gets down to ask William if he's convinced that she's level 99, which is so satisfying since we see him completely broken and screaming like a little baby. The day after she used the black hole, she was summoned to have an audience with the king. While she walked through, many of the subjects whispered about her black hair and use of dark magic, suspecting of her ties to the Demon Lord. She graciously presented herself before the king, but after she raised her head, the king apologized for the rudeness of his son Edwin and the mistreatment from the faculty at the academy. The other palace subjects gasped at the sight of their king bowing, and Yumiella began sweating, saying there was no need since she caused so much trouble as well. However, the king responds that dismissing her using only one-sided assumptions without first ascertaining her abilities was unreasonable. That being said, he still found it hard to believe a girl as dainty as Yumiella to be level 99, which is why he has the captain of the knights, Adolf, stand to judge her authenticity, since no one would question his judgment. Yumiella recalls Adolf to be the strongest knight in the kingdom, with a level of around 60. Since in-game, you only need to be level 70 in order to beat the Demon King, Adolf should be pretty strong. Adolf tells her out of respect, since she is max level, he's going to use his full strength. With it being so sudden, Yumiella is unsure if she should counterattack, but remembering she's supposed to be the hidden boss of the game, she decides to evade instead, which makes Adolf visibly astonished, as well as the king. He announces there aren't any knights who could evade that attack, and Yumiella was so calm, she had time to think about how she should even react to it, verifying her authenticity of being level 99. With everyone accepting Adolf's answer, the king requests Yumiella to demonstrate her magic, so she uses her Shadow Lance spell to summon spikes from the ground. The king then remarks the dark magic to be unusual and consults the head palace mage about it. The mage explains many think evil monsters use dark magic, but in reality it's no better or worse than any other magical attribute. It's all up to who's using it. However, it is extremely rare, which probably led many people to think dark magic users were evil. The king quickly comes to the conclusion that people's fears in dark magic is due to a lack of understanding, and feels it's also likely the reason people fear black hair for the same thing, causing Yumiella to be grateful since he's announcing it in front of everyone. That way the kingdom can be less afraid of dark hair and dark magic going forward. He then applauds Yumiella for excellence in achieving max level, and asks for her methodology. She tells him she didn't do anything special, just after earning money by killing monsters in her estate, she acquired an amulet of growth and entered the dungeon alone. From there, she played a monster calling flute and slayed monsters endlessly. Even though she didn't think much of it, everyone freaked out. Even the king was sweating. He asked Adolf if he could do the same thing. This is when Adolf explains only one amulet can be equipped at a time. A normal person would never remove an amulet of protection for Yumiella's EXP amulet, because protection amulets block fatal wounds. Adolf would be too terrified to call monsters if he were alone, making Yumiella realize she might be a freak in this world. The king then asks Yumiella to lend her strength for the kingdom, and as one of his loyal subjects, she complies. He wants to reward her with anything she desires, be it a domain or even royal treasure, or even offering his son Edwin in marriage to her. She thinks of the offer as very generous, but she's not interested in that dumb fuck, and can tell this is probably a way to keep her chained to the kingdom. She then lets him know her desire, to live a life of nothing but peace, and the king agrees, but at heart, Yumiella will 100% flee if the kingdom does anything she doesn't like. So, how did she end up in the queen's private chambers? The queen tells Yumiella there's no need to be formal, and whatever is said in the room stays in the room. But all Yumiella wants to do is leave. The queen can tell Yumiella is a type of person who hates having authority or responsibilities, but is also quite intelligent. Yumiella questions why the queen has so much trust in her, so the queen responds that most nobles pretend to be free of avarice in attempts to get close to their family. So knowing someone is genuine or has an ulterior motive is something the queen understands very naturally. The queen then explains the purpose of their meeting. She announces the coming of the Demon Lord 2 years from now, and she wants Yumiella to assist in defeating him. Yumiella is a little shocked. She had no idea the royal family already knew the Demon Lord was coming back since his defeat from the first king. The queen then explains her plan to group a small elite force led by her son Edwin, including talented students to be recruited, such as Alicia, which was something Edwin was trying to figure out back when he had hid himself in Alicia's room on her first day in the dorms. Yumiella agrees to help, but the queen apologizes because there's a caveat. The royal family must defeat the Demon Lord, otherwise their right to rule would come under question. She then smiles, suggesting Yumiella become a saint and marry Edwin, but Yumiella responds, No thank you, so fast, it's like a reflex. She apologizes, but the queen is fine with it. The queen then explains the current problem is all the nobles will try to drag Yumiella to their faction. Basically, there's two factions, the king faction and anti-king faction, where the anti-king faction is led by Duke Hilrose, which contains all nobles who are dissatisfied with the current state of the kingdom, and central wannabes like Yumiella's parents. Yumiella quickly understands that her parents might follow the orders of the Hilrose family, but it's alright, because the queen has already prepared orders that'll prevent Yumiella from being married off, at least until she's done with the academy, giving her some time to figure out her family situation. The king and queen then speak privately, commending Yumiella's strength. Despite being estranged by her parents and shunned by society for her black hair, she doesn't hold a grudge against anyone, a testament to her excellent character. A week after being summoned to the castle, people treated Yumiella differently at school. Many students who were fearful began greeting her regularly, except Alicia still freaked out whenever seeing her. The trio of idiots even lightly apologized to Yumiella, probably due to a scolding from the king, even though they were f***ing in the wrong. The biggest change to Yumiella's life was the amount of marriage proposals she received, which she learned to quickly dismiss by telling her pursuers she only likes men that are stronger than her. Except the son from the Hilrose family won't take a hint, so she gaslights him into thinking he'll be executed, since his family might be looking to cause an insurrection against the current king, and he runs away like a little bitch. In the school hallway, she then runs into another child from the anti-king faction, Eleonora Hilrose, who in the game reigns supreme over all the girls in the academy. In the game, Yumiella tries to earn Eleonora's acceptance by doing mean things to Alicia. Yumiella was trying to avoid this girl as well, but Eleonora has apparently been dying to talk to her. She invites Yumiella to a tea party, and even though she wants to refuse, she knows it'll only cause more trouble, so she accepts. During tea time, we learn Yumiella never really had a social life and knew nothing about fashion or trends. She absolutely cannot do girl talk, but could maybe handle some idle chatter with her 3 sacred techniques. So when Eleonora begins talking about perfumes, Yumiella uses Tech 1, I see, then responding to the perfume creator's brand ideology, Tech 2, that's amazing, and finally, the perfume creator's first time ever making perfume, Tech 3, please tell me more. Wow. What great conversation skills you have, Yumiella. Eleonora finally gets to the point of their meeting, and it's to say she wants Yumiella to give up on marrying Prince Edwin, which wasn't where Yumiella thought this was going to go at all. She tells Yumiella to stop playing dumb, but Yumiella can't help but think Eleonora should probably be saying this to Alicia. She then explains she has no interest in the prince, and that Eleonora would be a better fit for him, causing her to light up and totally agree and babble on and spin around over her crush. The next day, while enjoying her lunch, some students asked to eat with Yumiella, but then Alicia appears, asking if Yumiella is the Demon Lord, which is something she wasn't expecting. The other girls become flabbergasted at the idea of Yumiella being the Demon Lord. They knew she used dark magic, but nothing else really indicated her being a demon other than her outrageous strength. Yumiella sat wondering how Alicia knew the Demon Lord was coming back, so Alicia explains Ed told her about it. That stupid prince. Did he really blab top secret information to Alicia? Yumiella asks if Ed told Alicia she was the Demon Lord. However, what he said to her was that the Demon Lord would be coming back in 2 years' time, but Alicia felt even Alicia couldn't endure the thought of hunting boss monsters and setting performance goals as if leveling was some kind of occupational job. But she was surprised to hear Yumiella tell her how important her light magic is, even emphasizing that she should spend all her time leveling in dark type dungeons to practice her proficiency. Yumiella was so proud of her explanation, because everyone was speechless. However, the prince just shouts that she's trying to get his own way. Yumiella then thinks, well, okay, maybe Edwin's party isn't so eager, but surely all the other students would be excited to level more efficiently, but they weren't, and everyone became more wary of Yumiella on this day. She pondered why Alicia was so scared of her, thinking there might be a chance Alicia also reincarnated just like she did, so she decides to observe Alicia a bit more these coming days. Day after day, she begins she's just a nice girl. She remembers from the game that Alicia is the cheerful, innocent type who enrolls in the magic academy so she can use her magic to help others. At first, she didn't understand noble customs, so she didn't fit in. Then the conquerable characters helped her out. As Yumiella watches Alicia, it's her reactions to herself that throw her off. Also, she doesn't see Alicia then Yumiella excuses herself since she has to continue observing Alicia. She spots Alicia on an upper floor, so she jumps up to it, gripping the ledge so hard it cracks. She spots Edwin helping her study, and wonders if this means Alicia has Edwin ask Alicia why she thought Yumiella was the Demon Lord, since his father told him she's not. But after hearing Edwin's explanation, she concludes it might have something to do with her light magic, making Yumiella understand that Alicia reacts just like that cat did. But in any case, it now seems for sure that Alicia isn't reincarnated. We then transition to the principal's office because Yumiella had been called there, and were presented with Ronald, a new principal that had been employed by the king as an envoy to help support Yumiella. She asks where the previous principal went, and Ronald responds he resigned, aka he got fired. The two sit down to talk, and Ronald calls Edwin a troublemaker for announcing the impending return of the Demon Lord, since it was supposed to be a state secret. He remarks that Edwin wasn't always the type to behave so rashly, but recently he and his two best friends have been acting the same way. Yumiella asks if something had happened to them, so Ronald explains that Yumiella outshining them probably shattered their pride. However, with the students having an upcoming field trip, he wants Yumiella to monitor everyone during training. We move to the field training, where all the students gather to a demon dog begins attacking one of the vanguards, knocking him down, but Patrick saves him with a single slash. After the students defeat all the monsters, Patrick's rear guard is so exhausted that now the vanguard can't level up. She then tells Patrick there is nothing to fear, because even though the students have exhausted themselves, she'll hold back the monsters this time. Patrick tries to stop her, but it's too late. She blows the monster summoning flute again. She then walks over and powers up and stops the monsters using Dark Bind. That way the students can take their time killing them. Patrick tests this out and confirms Yumiella's method to be good, and even though Yumiella meant no harm, she still gave Patrick a headache having to keep, since dark magic also has healing spells, but dark healing is absolutely grotesque, something that Patrick isn't too eager to see. Patrick comes out completely healed and thanks Yumiella. She asks him why he jumped in front of her, and he tells her he was just trying to protect her. He level 99, but he continued to train into the evening. The day after the field lesson, the principal gave Yumiella a warning about using the monster calling flute to overtrain the students again, even though I think she was completely in the right. The two continued their discussion about how dark magic also possesses healing arts, with Yumiella also claiming it can even regrow an arm. He gets nervous, wondering if she's speaking from experience, and she just casually replies, "Yeah, when I was a child, I sliced my arm off," making him even more nervous. But she recalls how close of a call it was, since she almost sliced her head off, and no healing magic can regrow a head. She then asks about how the Central Nobles lessons are going, and Principal Ronald answers he thinks Edwin and his friends are leveling, with William as the vanguard and Edwin and Oswald taking out any monsters he missed. The only issue being Edwin's party killed all the monsters themselves, and the other students can't gain any levels that way. Yumiella then asks about Alicia, but it's the same. She didn't kill even a single monster. She wonders if Alicia wanted to do more, but even though the report doesn't convey the details, Ronald suspects the three boys probably just wanted to show off in front of the girl they liked. But since Alicia has light magic, their country needs her to become stronger, and Yumiella may be assigned to assist her, which makes her excited to help as she envisions Alicia's strong advantage to demonic monster creatures with her light attribute. But Ronald only thinks of Alicia screaming in terror, just like how I'd scream in terror knowing you haven't liked this video and subscribed to my channel. Here at My Shoujo Weekly, we have plenty of villainous anime for you to enjoy. Come on, hit that sub, give me some love. That way, I can make more videos for you. I'd appreciate it. On another subject, the school has received a request from the castle's magic tool development team to test the endurance of some magic tools, and Yumiella decides to take on the job. Magic tools are exactly as they sound, tools that have been imbued with magic. Aside from the basics like weapons and armor, they also include things like the Amulet of Growth and Monster Calling Flute. Ronald then hands Yumiella the material they want to test, a special metal they want to make armor out of. It survived attacks from Knight Captain Adolf, but they want to know how well it fares against, and just as he's speaking, she straight up bends the tough material in front of him. He's disturbed at first, but wants Yumiella to describe just how much strength that took, but she honestly has no idea. Ronald tries bending it himself, and embarrassingly, it doesn't even budge. Yumiella wanders the school until Patrick approaches her. He learns from Yumiella that she was indeed scolded for using the monster calling flute, and he's relieved that she's possibly learned her lesson. Another student calls out to Patrick as their classmates want him to handle the next field lesson, making Yumiella notice just how much the other students trust him. Since that day the field lesson ended, so has Yumiella's school life of solitude and isolation, as Patrick comes by to talk to her every now and then. During sword training class, Patrick asks Yumiella if she'd like to spar with him, since she isn't paired up. The students stare at them, probably astonished in what he just asked her, and Yumiella feels there are plenty who would personally love to pair up with him, but he tells her not to worry about that since he owes her for healing him. She says, however, it's not a big deal since he could have just healed himself with a potion. So he goes, "Oh really? Guess I'll pair up with someone else then," leaving her to respond he should worry about it and partner up with her usually stoic expression. After all, she did heal his injury. This makes him laugh because technically she was the cause of it in the first place. As the two take their ready stances, Yumiella thinks that Patrick might be the closest thing to her friend since she's reincarnated here. It must be his natural virtue that makes everyone choose to follow his orders, and also his voice carries well for some reason. Yumiella found herself beginning to admire Patrick's traits and his character. As the two trade blows, Yumiella also thinks Patrick's swordsmanship is beautiful, unlike herself as she only relies on sheer power and reflexes. Patrick then goes for a mighty finishing strike, but Yumiella sends him flying away into the ground. She runs in apologizing and starts to heal him with her grotesque dark arts, and he thanks her, but isn't too pleased by how the healing looks. Yumiella continues to apologize, but Patrick tells her to stop, as he feels he might not be a worthy partner for her. She disagrees, however, as she wants to learn from his style of swordplay to improve herself even further, leaving him wondering what she needs to be so strong for. She says, probably the Demon Lord. But when Patrick asks if he's really coming back, she denies it completely. And even though Prince Edwin's dumbass has been telling everyone about the Demon Lord coming back, since he's been losing a lot of his popularity and reputation for flirting with Alicia all the time, people are now more likely to take Yumiella's word on things. Most of the students even think the return of the Demon Lord is merely a joke or just plain made up. But even then, the rumor that Yumiella is actually the Demon Lord hasn't exactly died down either, especially after summoning monsters with a flute during the previous field lesson. So she asks if Patrick thinks she's the Demon Lord, but he believes there's no way, since if she was, the world would probably be wiped out by now. True. However, Patrick is bothered that one of the reasons people think she is the Demon Lord is because of her black hair. His remark surprises her a little. He then explains when he was young, his hair was almost black, and it had always bothered him. It all started when one of his relatives said his hair looked blackish, and even though his nuclear family told him not to worry, he began to hate his hair after that. Yumiella tells him his hair looks more whitish, making his eyes widen because in comparison to hers, it probably would be considered that. But that's exactly why he admires how confidently she wears her black hair. He then says he'll promise to never look down on her or dislike her because of her hair color, which leaves her in a shock for words, blushing, meekly responding, thank you, even saying he thinks her hair looks pretty, which makes her look away, face still flustered red, but with her flushed cheeks. She asks for another match, like a child asking for another treat. So Patrick responds with another strike, but gets knocked away, landing completely knocked out this time. Yumiella heals him right away, and even with the magic looking disgusting, he still thanks her and admires her confidence in the use of dark magic. She lies in bed that night, reflecting on how she never gave much thought to Yumiella as a character in the game. She wondered if Yumiella in the game was also born with her dark magic too. In the canon lore, Yumiella obtained her dark magic because she gave in to the darkness, but the scenes were never clear about it. Maybe the truth was actually different. Maybe Yumiella could have used dark magic all along, so she kept it hidden from everyone to fit in. She must have really hated the heroine, who was embraced for her light magic by everyone. But there's no point in thinking about that now. This world is real, and not the game world. A few days later, they began their second field lesson. Patrick warned Yumiella not to use her flute again, but today will be alright since she'll only be acting as their battlefield medic. As the students search around the lake for monsters, Yumiella sits down next to some potions, completely bored out of her mind. She's so bored she starts playing rock, paper, scissors with her own dark bind magic, all while using omnivision to watch the students train. One of them gets bitten by a fish, so Yumiella hurries to the student because she has nothing better to do. She at first offers her heals or a potion, but quickly takes the student's options away. Since she can heal him, they won't have to waste potions at all. She uses her puke-inducing dark heal to restore the students' wounds, and she's so proud of it, while both the students and teachers stare in shock. During break time, Yumiella can't help but feel the lax attitude of her classmates to be definitely problematic. Her philosophy to leveling is to push herself at all times. She tries to pull out the monster-calling flute, but Patrick catches it, reminding her she's not allowed to use it. However, Yumiella argues the current situation is worse, because all the students are skilled enough to handle the monsters she would summon. Thus, the difficulty of the lesson should be raised in proportion to their levels. Patrick can't disagree with that. She then says each one of them should be able to dungeon on their own, but Patrick 100% disagrees, saying that's too dangerous for anyone. However, she gets offended since that's how she leveled up. Regardless, their current method is still too inefficient, and the students need to face monsters at higher levels. But then she thinks of a new method. What if she just injured everyone with her magic and then healed them, making Patrick get taken aback at her idea of corporally punishing the students to make them focus more? She's even confident she can hurt them without killing them. Yeah, great idea, Yumiella. She offers the students two choices, the flute or injury, and everyone instantly chooses the flute. So she grabs the flute despite Patrick's wishes, and after blowing it, she realizes she forgot she was supposed to be more polite and ask permission first. As she stared at the students hunting the monsters, she kept thinking about how she's a little too overzealous when it comes to leveling. With her being a count's daughter, and Patrick being a Margrave's son, she technically ranks below him. So if she makes the Ashbatten family mad, her family's reputation as nobility will drop. Well, that's not really a problem for her, but the idea of Patrick hating her makes Yumiella a little sad for some reason. Yumiella takes note of Patrick using his wind magic to help his voice carry when he makes commands, and earth magic to keep his feet planted at all times. She begins to admire Patrick for being a genius when it comes to combat, probably even rivaling Edwin's entire party. After the battle, she comes to congratulate him on his leadership, but everyone piles around Patrick, leaving her no room to interact with him. Yumiella returned to the academy without exchanging any words with Patrick. She kept thinking that even if Patrick hated her, if things went back to the way they were before, it's nothing too much to stress about. She then gets stopped mid-thought by Alicia, who apologizes for assuming she was the Demon Lord the other day, because it caused Yumiella a lot of trouble. Yumiella stares at Alicia shaking. She knows she's terrified, but feels Alicia really is a nice girl. But Edwin butts in, telling Yumiella to stay away, especially after what she did during the field lesson, accusing her of summoning monsters in order to kill someone to make it look like an accident. Oh my gosh, this guy makes me so mad. I hate Edwin. Yumiella takes no offense, however, since the story he heard was probably exaggerated. But then he accuses her of plotting to injure the students, and then heal them in order to barter favor to make herself more popular. Even with her not being the Demon Lord, Edwin still thinks of Yumiella as dangerous to the academy, reminding her she really is an outcast in this world. She wondered if being here is even worth it, since she has no friends. But even if she ran away, would there be a place for her anywhere in this world? Then suddenly, Patrick comes in, telling Edwin to hold his tongue. It's true, she did use the monster-calling flute, but only to make the students take the lesson seriously. But even with her in the wrong, her methods are popular amongst the regional nobles. He even began praising her for her efficient leveling methods, which made Yumiella audibly gasp. Regardless, Patrick asked Edwin to stay out of this matter, and the two stared at each other in silence for a bit. Edwin agreed and took off with Alicia, and Yumiella began to stare at Patrick, feeling as if he was furious. He then turned and smiled at Yumiella, consoling her for how harsh Edwin was being towards her. She wondered if it was wise for Patrick to speak to the prince like that, or with Patrick being the son of a Margrave, being detested by the second prince is meaningless to him, since Edwin would only be slightly above in rank. Yumiella's hands began to shake as she asked if he was angry, but he's not as angry as he is exasperated, especially since it seems Edwin lacks awareness of his own royal standing. But Yumiella was referring to herself, not Edwin, making him mad. She then apologized for her impoliteness earlier, but Patrick thought nothing of it. He's not a big-headed central noble. He wants Yumiella to talk to him however she feels most comfortable. Yumiella is shocked since hierarchy is supposed to be very important in noble society. Is it alright to do things like this? But Patrick assures her he doesn't care about formalities. There are way too many other things to be worried about, which she agrees. She then asks if he was looking for her this entire time, and he explains he thought she looked a little bit down after the field lesson, so he got a bit worried. She then tells him she had a little bit of depression time, but she's all better now. She then thanks him for everything, and Patrick is surprised to see her beautiful smile. It made her question if she was smiling or not, since she doesn't usually do that. With them heading back to class, Yumiella left with hopes of being friends with Patrick, but maybe that was too much to ask for. The summer recess, aka summer break, has come. Most students return to their family homes, but there are a few who stay at school. Patrick and Yumiella are some of those few who have stayed behind, so they practice swordplay, with Patrick scolding her for being a little sloppy. Yumiella then re-preps her stance and goes in for another strike, only to send Patrick flying until he hits the ground. Whoops, she accidentally used too much strength. She runs over to heal him, and he tells her he's okay with it since he's used to it by now. She apologizes for sparring with him even though it's spring break, but he's fine since no success. Yumiella thinks to herself it was going so well during her solo practice sessions, but for some reason feels a little off with Patrick here. In the afternoon, the summer students have been doing independent study in the classroom, but really, there's nothing to do back in the dorms anyways. Yumiella gets asked by two of her classmates for assignment help, and she observes people have been approaching her more frequently as of late. The two girls then ask why both Yumiella and Patrick are always spending time together. Oh, I think we know why. But Yumiella just plainly answers, training to level up, with her usual stoic expression, and tells the two if they're interested, Yumiella can recommend some good dungeons for them, even use the monster calling flute to help with leveling, but the two girls nervously decline. Patrick tells Yumiella she shouldn't always jump straight into dungeon talk because she's clearly scaring the girls. So Yumiella uses her heightened hearing to hear some classmates whisper that Yumiella is like a wild beast and Patrick is like the beast tamer. Maybe even close like siblings. But Yumiella doesn't see herself that close to him yet. And she at first thinks the best use of her time might be to just read every military-related book she finds, but finds herself surprised stumbling upon Alicia in the library as well. She tries to hide herself at first, hoping that Alicia is alone because she doesn't want to run into the other boys. Alicia walks up to her and actually wants Yumiella to teach her magic. The two sit down, and Yumiella learns Alicia doesn't understand her own light magic very well. Since it's such a rare attribute, even the teachers seem unsure how to teach her. There aren't many books that discuss the subject either. So with Alicia having heard that dark magic is equally uncommon as light, she hopes Yumiella would have something to teach her. Yumiella just stares for a second, but gladly accepts to do anything she can, and with Alicia smiling, Yumiella feels her glow. Alicia asks how Yumiella learned her dark magic, but of course, Yumiella can't explain she saw it in the game. She does also know about light magic from her time playing the game, but rationalizes it wouldn't make sense for her to know about things there are no books about. So that means. Yumiella then asks if Alicia has any strong memories that involve using light magic, and when thinking about it, Alicia is reminded of seeing the starry sky with her grandmother back in the country. The place she lived was very rural. It didn't have tall buildings or anything, and because of that, the whole sky was filled with stars and was so beautiful. Thinking of those days made Alicia feel like her time now at the academy was just a dream. Alicia then gets up and thanks Yumiella because she's figured something out, and takes her leave, hoping to come back anytime she needs to ask Yumiella for advice. Later that evening, Yumiella continues her studies, only to have Patrick walk in on her. It seems he's brought her a gift from the Queen, as he had just come back from business there. With the gift being pastries, she decides to invite Patrick back to her room to eat with her. This gets him taken aback, and he blushes in anger, telling her not to invite men into her room like it's no big deal. She turns to apologize, and Patrick says sorry too for overreacting, with his face still flushed. They decide to eat together in the cafeteria. Patrick remarks the pastries are good, and when Yumiella replies, "They are, aren't they?" he wonders why she sounds so proud since she didn't make them. And the two girl classmates from earlier stare gushing at Patrick and Yumiella, just like I am. They're so cute together. With summer break ending, the season of the martial arts competition came. It's a school-wide competition event for military officers to show off their talents. Something that Yumiella doesn't want to get any attention for. Patrick apparently has no interest in the competition either, as he has no aspirations to join the military, and also has no desire for the prize they're offering this year, and will be rewarded with an amulet that enhances dark magic. Something that surprised Yumiella since the item is so rare, she hasn't even heard about it. Patrick tries to say she doesn't need to get any stronger, but Yumiella wants it now. more badly than anything. She then takes off speeding, ready to enter the martial arts competition. She tells Principal Ronald to enter her, and that even if she hadn't learned what the prize was until later, she definitely would have robbed the winners of the amulet on an unfortunate night. However, she still believes even rewards must be obtained by legitimately winning the event. That's her motto, which surprises Ronald because he didn't believe she'd actually take the bait. The day of the event arrives, and Yumiella remarks this is even a bigger deal than she thought it'd be. Patrick had heard the amulet was given to the principal by the king himself to be passed along to Yumiella, yet they decided to offer them as prizes, which must mean the principal set her up, probably to use this as a chance to show her off to the nobles, the equivalent of a trip to the zoo to see the lions or a viewing of the military's latest weapon. The tournament proctor then calls the participants to the center, so Yumiella tells Patrick she'll do her best. And as he's about to cheer her on, he says, okay, but maybe hold back a little bit. They check the tournament board and draw places, with the students who are in the same bracket as Yumiella disappointed, and the students in a different bracket excited. Because, yeah, she's still level 99. However, she's still curious about what methods he used to level, so she uses her 3 sacred implements of idle chatter. I see, that's amazing, and please tell me more. But William only takes this as her mocking him, and is so stupid he never catches on to the fact that she's just not good at socializing. He apologizes because he heard confirmation from Captain Adolf that she is level 99. That is someone he absolutely trusts. His dream was originally to surpass Captain Adolf, so beating Yumiella would be proof he's achieved it. But however, for everyone else, this competition is a job hunt. She needs to hold back enough to let the audience see his strength. However, she's certainly concerned about the durability of these swords, as a broken weapon is equal to instant disqualification. Most swords snap right in two when she uses them at full strength, so to figure out how much she can use, she swings the blade a little and it causes a miniature gust to blow at her opponent. However, she's now figured out how hard she's allowed to go, but unfortunately her opponent immediately withdraws. Not just him though, as she made it to the final round without fighting a single opponent. They all just forfeited at the might of her power. She observed William and Edwin's duel, with William coming out the victor. She knows Edwin is a magic swordsman, so fighting only with sword alone, he's at a disadvantage. It's the final round, Yumiella versus William. He won't back down as he wants to fight her fair and square. She's glad she finally gets to fight, since winning by default wouldn't have made her feel very good. William brandishes the great sword of Strodo, declaring it won't break like the wimpy wooden swords they used before. But all Yumiella thinks about is that it's supposed to be his endgame sword, so how did he get it? They begin with Yumiella with ease, noticing he's running out of breath. After all, this is what happens to someone using a weapon above their level. William tells her to come at him, and she thinks he's right. It's boring if she's just evading the whole time. She needs to make it more climactic. When William goes for his next strike, Yumiella decides to parry, like Patrick taught her. But, oh no, her sword is gonna break, and she'll get disqualified. So she uses her Yumiella punch that is so fast, people at low levels can't even see it. And she's glad no one noticed, but Captain Adolf nervously stares, realizing she had broken the greatsword with her bare hand. Then came the magic competition, where participants displayed their magic in order by level, which is then scored by academy teachers and palace mages. Oswald comes to congratulate Yumiella for winning the sword fighting portion, but tells her winning the magic one won't be so easy, as she'll not only be scored by magic strength, but on types used and accuracy of the magic. Even though his level is lower, the fact that he can use the 4 major elements puts Oswald at the advantage. He also apologizes for doubting the fact that she really is level 99, but that doesn't change the fact that he'll never like her, as he plans to be the top mage in the kingdom, and winning this tournament is going to be his first step towards achieving his goal. And with the two saying they'll give their all, he takes his leap. It's Alicia's turn, and she displays her Sun Rain spell, which illuminates the arena to imitate the starry sky she used to see with her grandmother. Also, the rarity of the magic, which gives Yumiella hope that she'll score better because her dark magic is just as rare. He scores a 90. Then comes Oswald, who displays magic earth cubing mixed with fire and water. The accuracy of this technique cannot be understated. His combination techniques are the works of a genius, and he scores a clean 100 points. A perfect score. He passes by Yumiella to say, no matter what, she can't beat perfection, but she's confident that if she scores 100, they can at least draw. Only, As she walks out, she's still unsure of what magic to use. Then she pulls it away before it causes harm and brings out the sunlight, but suddenly the sunlight turns into pouring rain and darkness. She forgot the spell always causes a miniature typhoon, and the people scream at the fear of dying. But oh shoot, she needs variety. Should she use Dark Bind or Turbid Flow? The proctor tells her to stop and offers her 300 points as long as she puts an end to this. She's then crowned the victor in front of everyone, and is very excited now that her magic will be even stronger. Afterwards, Patrick asks if she really needed the amulet, so she considers showing him just how strong the amulet makes her while emanating her dark aura. Winter has come, and so too is Yumiella's first year at the academy coming to an end. People have grown only more scared of her since the martial arts competition, putting her loner status on full display, except for the only one who's willing to tell her good morning, her dear acquaintance, Patrick Ashbatten. Yumiella can't even remember the last time she spoke to anyone but Patrick. As he sits next to her, she's relieved not having had to deal with Alicia or the conquerable characters in a while. Until now, with Edwin already starting the day by accusing Yumiella of stealing Alicia's belongings. Yumiella tells him she doesn't know anything about Alicia's missing stuff, but Edwin doubles down, saying she's better off confessing now rather than the one who bullies Alicia. However, our Yumiella would never do something like that. There are many others who dislike Alicia though, because she's a commoner, because she's close to the prince and his buddies. If the bullying escalates and Alicia stops coming to school, it could halt her leveling progress, which means it's time for Yumiella to go on a stake and find the perpetrator. In the evening, we see a girl running to Alicia's desk, about to take one of her textbooks, but not before Yumiella calls out to her, and the girl screams upon seeing Yumiella stuck to the ceiling like she's Spider-Man. Yumiella jumps down and the girl gets to ask herself, just how evil do they think she is? The girl then snitches, exposing Miss Eleonora as the puppeteer pulling the strings, something Yumiella wasn't expecting. In Eleonora's room, the girl plays dumb, opening with, "And you think I ordered her to do that? Oh my gosh." As states she's here to tell Eleonora her friend was doing something bad, and the blue-haired girl admitted doing it of her own free will. However, if Prince Edwin were to hear about this, he might think this girl was acting under Eleonora's orders. And upon hearing this, Eleonora gasps lightly. Yumiella then adds she doesn't think Eleonora should punish the girl as it would only make the others suspicious. And Eleonora gets frantically nervous, worried about Edwin and Alicia getting closer. However, Yumiella reassures her, saying a commoner can't marry into the royal family, to which Eleonora easily accepts with a childlike demeanor. But Yumiella knows she just lied, because if Alicia defeats the Demon King, the king will regard her as the second coming of the saint and have her marry the prince. To keep things peaceful, Yumiella convinces Eleonora to ignore Alicia, again, saying that she's praying for Eleonora and Edwin to find happiness together. And Eleonora eats this up, delusionally daydreaming, thinking everyone with eyes thinks her and Edwin belong together. But for Yumiella, this is mission accomplished. Stop the bullying of Alicia and protect the responsible parties. Later, Patrick tells Yumiella he was expecting her to turn the culprit in, thinking Edwin scolding Eleonora would resolve everything. Yumiella couldn't help but think though that the blue-haired girl could have been her. What if a version of Yumiella who kept her dark magic secret and never did any leveling up lived in some other world? If her parents told her to befriend other nobles, she might have been desperate to get into Eleonora's clique. Yumiella could have been Eleonora's #1 underling. She tells all of this figurative scenario while thinking about Yumiella's bullying of Alicia in the game, and how upon getting caught, Eleonora had thrown her out of the group. She's certain there would have been no one left by her side. She'd hate her parents, hate Eleonora, hate Alicia. Because her and Alicia have diametrically opposing elements, Alicia is loved by all, while Yumiella is loved by none. This leaves Yumiella to ponder on the idea that maybe Yumiella in the game was actually a victim in society all along. Even if that Yumiella were to level up and get stronger, light is strong against dark. Thinking about the end of the game, where Alicia would actually kill her. She tells Patrick considering all these what-ifs made her want to help the blue-haired girl. But when we see Patrick shaken to his core, Yumiella asks him what's wrong. He's sad because there's no difference between the Yumiella he knows now and the hypothetical one, except that this Yumiella is a higher level. He asks if she has anyone on her side. wonders if she hates this world because if she does, Patrick wants to, but before he can answer, Yumiella says it's alright, since she has an acquaintance to talk to every now and then, referring to him. As Yumiella heads out, she feels getting a conversation partner was hard enough. She doesn't know if she'll ever make a friend, and can't even imagine getting a romantic partner. All while Patrick sits down saying to himself, an acquaintance, huh? A few days later, Eleonora comes to greet Yumiella. She's been following Yumiella around since the bullying incident, and inviting her to tea every single day for the last 3 days. Yumiella tries to bail out, saying she has things to do. She's genuinely scared because Eleonora keeps following behind her and continually laughing with cheer. She thinks back to when the queen mentioned the leader of the anti-king faction to be Duke Hilrose, Eleonora's father, something Yumiella would like to not be close to. As Eleonora continues to follow with glee, Yumiella can't help but think she needs to reject the girl, even if she ends up getting hate. She tells Eleonora to stop inviting her to tea. Eleonora wonders why, especially because she has delicious sweets to share too. Oh no, Yumiella's level 99 weakness. She explains that if these two are chummy, Edwin won't like Eleonora. And Eleonora can't have that, so she asks Yumiella for help, which doesn't make sense at all. Yumiella then goes along with Eleonora because it'll make her happy. She has Yumiella try some snacks, asking how they are. With Yumiella munching, she doesn't think they're too bad, but not too good either. Eleonora exclaims she made those herself. Yes, this is Yumiella's chance to get Eleonora to hate her and get her off her back. Yumiella lays it in, saying, "Ah, no wonder. I thought it tasted kind of disgusting." The room goes silent. Yumiella played her cards right. These were a failed batch. However, all of Eleonora's friends say they're the most delicious things in the world. She shakes Yumiella's hands up and down, happy because Yumiella is the only one who tells her the truth. Oh man, I think Yumiella picked the wrong dialogue option. She asks Eleonora why she started baking, and we learn Alicia gives Prince Edwin homemade sweets. So, Eleonora wanted to try her hand at it too. Yumiella steals her resolve, as she needs to make Eleonora absolutely hate her so she can be left alone. Yumiella tells her there's no way Eleonora could ever make a delicious cookie. But Eleonora replies, "Yes, of course," happily exclaiming she only tried because her friends said she should, but it's not something she'd normally do to begin with. Yumiella only finds herself dumbfounded, as Eleonora cheers Yumiella for Eleonora hate her, the more she keeps earning affection. Eleonora knows all her friends think she could never make a mistake because she's so perfect. If her friends ever differ in opinion, they immediately decide themselves that they are in the wrong and Eleonora is right. But Yumiella knows it's because they don't want to get on her bad side. Eleonora is so gullible. Yumiella worries someone may be trying to manipulate her into getting rid of Alicia. She asks Eleonora about the book stealing incident from the other day, which gets her to look away with remorse. However, we learn that Eleonora does feel bad about it, and Eleonora thinks it's no problem if Yumiella becomes her friend. She wants to get all sorts of advice from Yumiella on how to make Edwin hers. Another few days later, as Yumiella relaxes by doing some book reading, Eleonora barges in because she's here to visit. Rita had let her in because she can't refuse the daughter of Duke Hilrose. Rita opens up the closet only to reveal frilly, childlike dresses sent from her mother. She can't go to the party wearing any of these. However, she wonders if she'd be missing out on something, with Patrick in mind. Looks like Yumiella got a present from the queen. Is it everything that she needed for the party? At the end of year party, everyone's flabbergasted at the sight of Yumiella and Eleonora walking together. Yumiella spots Alicia surrounded by the guys, aware that the romance route event hasn't even triggered yet. Eleonora asks if Yumiella asked Patrick to escort her, and Yumiella wonders why she keeps bringing up Patrick. But when Patrick sees her, it's like she came, but Yumiella feels like leaving as she's kind of embarrassed wearing this dress. We can see, however, that he can't take his eyes off of her, and when Yumiella asks him what's wrong, he looks away saying it's nothing. They then hear William and Oswald shout that Edwin and Alicia are missing, and they run to search for the two. So Yumiella's gotten her wish, finding out what route Alicia chose. We see Alicia dragging Edwin out to the balcony, so quickly he's out of breath, knowing the two of them ditched Will and Oz. Alicia happily exclaims she just wanted to show him where the stars were the brightest. Back at the party, Yumiella tells Patrick and telling her to wait. They stare face to face as if no one else is in this room with them at this moment. Patrick politely asks her for just one dance, making Yumiella's jaw drop. Well, drop as far as it can, I mean. She just thinks he looks so noble right now. As she responds by reaching out her hand to his, she wants to say something like, "with pleasure," to match his grace. But she only utters the words, "sure." Darn, her natural self sounds so curt. Patrick is okay with it though, because this is how she always is. With the two dancing, Yumiella feels so mismatched. She's envious of Patrick for taking the lead flawlessly. He tries to ease her by telling her to relax, and that it's okay if she steps on his toes. He then pulls her in closer, and as they continue to dance, Yumiella notices her body moving so smoothly. She's actually having fun. She wonders why, but just accepts it without any more thoughts. The people are enamored at the sight of the two's beautiful dancing. Yumiella notices them and wonders if they're staring because they think her dress is stained with the blood of her enemies. Silly Yumiella. Patrick dismisses this though. He tells her the real reason. It's because she looks beautiful. Yumiella can only half of a what? She's telling herself to calm down. She's not the type to swing between giddy and depressed over what she thinks are empty compliments. But her palms are getting sweaty and she has no idea what to do. She tells Patrick he shouldn't lie. That would make people distrust him. But he just answers that she's kind of dense. She's getting flustered because she can't come up with clever responses to empty compliments. But Patrick then says maybe he's the one who's been dense all along, saying, "I finally realized it today, that I..." However, the crowd clapping interrupts his words, giving Yumiella the chance to step back and wipe her sweaty palms. He doesn't look happy though, considering he couldn't say what we all knew he was gonna say. Another guy comes over to ask Yumiella for a dance, which gets Patrick down even more. Who are stronger? During the spring recess, he decided to train in the dungeons every day, slaying monster after monster, until they began their second year at the academy, where, before the opening ceremony, Patrick was able to see all of his classmates again. And Yumiella holding some weird big egg? What is that? Patrick asks what the egg is all about, and she simply answers, "It's my child," leaving Patrick flabbergasted. We turn back time to before spring recess again. Jessica Montfort, a fellow classmate and in the original game, best friend to Alicia, asked Yumiella for a favor. A dragon took residence on a mountain in the Montfort domain and destroyed a lot of the property, terrorizing the town. The local soldiers were nowhere near capable of defeating it, and if they wait for the Valschein military, the area may be wiped out before they arrive. So she asked Yumiella for help, and as the two ride in the carriage, Yumiella surmises that red dragons use fire attributes, just like in the original game. Meeting Jessica's father, he exclaims Yumiella is just like Jessica described her, like the Demon Lord, to which she vehemently denies. "Come on, Dad," she said Yumiella was strong enough to defeat the Demon Lord, not that she is one. Her father ponders upon hearing Yumiella, such a small lady, is in fact level 99, which gave Yumiella patronizing feelings since people haven't questioned her level since the day she ripped the first black hole in the academy. Later, Yumiella walked up the mountains with the Montfort soldiers, who complained about listening to the orders of a little rich girl. But hey, you guys should be thankful she's about to save your whole town. She stops, sensing the dragon's arrival, and the soldiers run and hide like little babies at the sight of the monster. The dragon breathes fire directly on Yumiella, but this meager attack is nothing for our level 99 Villainess. She uses Black Hole to destroy it immediately. It's futile though. Yumiella fires Shadow Lance and vaporizes the beast. But now, there's another task she needs to handle. She had to procure the egg from the dragons. We come back to current time with the attached to it. She at first just thought it as a convenient taxi, but since it'd be born imbued with her magic, she began to truly think of it as her baby. When Alicia wandered by, however, she cowered in fear seeing the two black auras of Yumiella and the baby dragon. Patrick thinks that the egg looks sinister, but Yumiella doesn't like him saying mean things about her baby. Just look at how lovable it is. I don't think Patrick agrees with that sentiment. Yumiella believes it's going to be the cutest dragon, and being hers, it'll also be the strongest dragon ever. The egg then suddenly rumbles, a sign it's about to hatch. She takes Patrick with her to her room, and he seems a little embarrassed to be in a girl's room. The two stare at the egg, and Yumiella gets sparkles in her eyes watching it move again. She begins poking it and thinks by how it moves, she can tell it's adorable. The egg begins to hatch, so Yumiella excitedly grabs onto Patrick's arm, nearly crushing it with her level 99 strength. I really might break Patrick's arm, as she tells him to help cheer it on, so Yumiella cheers in earnest, as Patrick cheers screaming in pain. The baby dragon finally comes out and growls, making Yumiella gush in its cuteness. Rita is scared, and Patrick as well though. But Yumiella finds it adorable. She describes it as having a sublime look. A black body that proves it absorbed her dark magic. She then goes to hug her baby with Japanese, but she stops, knowing that word doesn't exist in this world. So she accepts it, since it sounds like a name, making little baby Ryu happy enough to breathe darkness. Yumiella tells him not to do that indoors, but then the baby shoots lasers out of his eyes that Yumiella easily dodges, leaving both Patrick and Rita definitely frightened at the tiny beast. Yumiella calls it a day, since she needs to put Ryu to bed, and even though Patrick is surprised she's keeping it here, she tells him she's going to keep Ryu in bed with her until he becomes too big, and that's fine with them since Patrick and Rita do whatever they can to escape. Later that night, Yumiella prepares herself and Ryu for bedtime, gleaming over her adorable baby dragon. They rest for the night, but when morning comes out of her room, she ushers the dragon to come out of her window, and it slams right onto the ground, with Yumiella giving pats, proud of her baby. She needs to find a place for him to live nearby. But when her fellow classmates show up, they scream, of course, and more students appear, completely frightened at the powerful dragon. Patrick is surprised to see how big it got overnight as well. It turns out, Yumiella thought there was a second dragon she needed to slay. However, she found out all the students were just fussing over Ryu. Haha, definitely dense as ever. She thinks Ryu is so cute, he might become the most popular guy at school soon. Yumiella asks Ryu to go play with the students, but her classmates run away from the chase of the black dragon. Patrick shouts at Yumiella, telling her to sensibly call back Ryu. She asks if Patrick likes Ryu, so he turns away to say, cuteness aside, I do think he's a very clever dragon, completely deflecting from answering his true feelings. And as he says it's not normal to let Ryu play with people, Ryu comes over to playfully bite Patrick's head, and Yumiella lights up, wishing Ryu would do that to her too. Ryu then swings Patrick kind of like a toy, until he already got permission to rape. Yumiella has to tell her dragon not to get too friendly with people he's never met, and he jewel-soaked Prince, and before they leave, he gives one of those, "You'll pay for this humiliation." Only, Yumiella takes this as Edwin must not like animals either. But who would expect Eleonora to find this little guy adorable? She comes to embrace baby Ryu, telling him to get closer to everyone. He smells her, making her conclude Ryu must like fine jewelry, so she tries to play fetch with him, but instead ends up getting in his mouth. When she gets released from the dragon, Eleonora is busy, but he has a little time to spare, making Yumiella curious as to what's taking his time, something he wants to tell Yumiella when the time is right. She turns towards him, unsure of what he means, but thinks they might want to tell each other the same thing. He blushes, thinking the girl he likes actually likes him back. But wait, he wants to be the one to say it. But so does Yumiella? So he suggests they say it at the same time, with Yumiella answering she wants to fly through the sky with Ryu. Definitely not what he was hoping for, but she was hoping that he'd watch her fly. They head over to Ryu, and he's even bigger now. Patrick asks what the ring on Ryu's arm is, and Yumiella explains it's a symbol he belongs to the kingdom, so that people don't mistake him for a wild dragon. Yumiella is fine with flying, but afraid of falling off, because if anyone is standing where she lands, she'd be fine, but they definitely wouldn't be. She is confident about her ride, however, making Patrick nervous, knowing she's the most dangerous whenever she's confident. Yumiella and Ryu take off into the sky, and with the people watching in fear, she tells her dragon to say hello. Ryu dives through the town, making the townsfolk run away. She then has him do a loop-de-loop, but of course, she begins to fall off after getting so carried away. As she continues falling, she then tells Ryu to go home and that she'll be waiting for him there. But this was exactly what she was worried about. She can't soften her fall since she can't use wind magic. So, she shoots dark magic to change her trajectory, crashing near the school shed. Patrick comes in worried for her safety, and then runs in, ready to escort her to the nurse's office. She tries to tell him she's fine and she can walk herself, but he's frantic, saying Yumiella's magic should be able to heal her. Oh wait, she's right here. She then tells him to calm down, because he should know something like this isn't enough to hurt her, only for him to scold her, saying she needs to take better care of herself. She's still human after all. A few days later, she heads into town. With Ryu getting bigger, she needs a saddle, a food bowl, educational toys, and other pet supplies. A minimum of Remlest, who wants to have a word with her in private. Yumiella and Linus from the Remless Kingdom meet. She knows Remless is a neighbor of their kingdom of Valschein, close to the domain of Margrave Ashbatten, where Patrick's family lives, knowing also that Remless and Valschein currently don't get along. What could a spy from Remless possibly want with her? As Yumiella begins to eat after taking her order, Linus explains with him being stationed in this kingdom for a while now, he's been researching Yumiella since she was enrolled in the academy. Her usual blank face doesn't say it, but she's a little annoyed to be researched like some newly discovered animal species. She continues to eat, looking unmoved, while Linus explains he knows getting her over to Remless' side would be difficult. He knows she isn't interested in status or wealth, and even if she fled, it's not like there would be any particular reason for her to settle in Remless except on a whim. She then wondered why reach out if he knew that much already. So Linus replies it's because his country wants him to, especially finding out she had just acquired a dragon. So, despite his better judgment, Linus asked Yumiella if she'd come to Remless anyways, knowing they would most likely want her as a civilian soldier. Yumiella pauses to think about how if a war broke out, she would be forced to fight on the Ashbatten property where Patrick's family lives, and refuses simply. It's just as Linus thought, but he still wants to know something out of curiosity. What is her reason for staying in Valschein? Hearing this causes Yumiella to visibly gasp, as Linus recounts on how people here discriminate against those with black hair, but her thoughts of Patrick tells us everything we need to know. She doesn't tell Linus that, but instead saying she's here to defeat the Demon Lord, because he threatens the entire world, making Linus mention something peculiar. If the Demon Lord attacks, wouldn't it only be the kingdom of Valschein? A curious statement, but Linus has no time to address it, since Yumiella senses Valschein's soldiers about to barge in from the outside. She surmises someone must have been watching her. When the soldiers made it in, the two had already escaped. As she walks down the Sunset Boulevard, she's disappointed that she wasn't able to finish shopping for Ryu, but is satisfied to know Remless sees her value, that the Demon Lord seems to only attack the kingdom of Valschein, and that even though she once wanted to flee this kingdom, she wants to leave now even less, knowing she could become Patrick's enemy, acknowledging she feels something for Patrick. The next day, while petting Ryu, Yumiella thinks maybe her feelings were mistaken. Patrick asks about what, so she explains, hypothetically, if there was a girl attending a school somewhere that doesn't have many students, and she has no friends in her own grade, but around her second year, she met a kind boy who would help her study and listen when she needed to talk. Maybe she'd be likely to mistake friendly love for romantic love. Haha, who would ever do that? Haha. But it's what she's going through right now. Patrick wants to know what's going on, but Yumiella's having trouble putting it into words. She then tells him she wants to be friends with him, but Patrick thought they were already friends. And as Yumiella sees him sparkling, Patrick, saddened, tells her he already thought of her as his friend. Yumiella, staring agape, is losing it, wondering why he seems like a dreamboat all of a sudden, thinking his looks paired with his words are making him seem like a perfect hottie. She shakes her head, trying to bring herself back to reality. She doesn't believe anyone like this actually exists. Oh, she thinks maybe Patrick feels like she's a valuable combat asset if they go to war with Remless. She then ushers over to Ryu and tells Patrick if they were to go to war with Remless, she only intends to help Valschein's defensive side, with no intentions of doing any invading. Patrick thinks she must have some trust issues because of how the kingdom has treated her. As he scratches his head, he affirms he'd never try to use Yumiella's strength like that, knowing she'd run away if he ever did. Blushing, with a determined look, he tells her he'd stand by her side even if she was level 1. She thanks him with a meekness in her voice, but still believes one person alone can level up more efficiently than two. Of course, who said anything about leveling though? At school, Yumiella and Patrick check the results of their midterms, with Patrick being near the top again. However, he acknowledges Yumiella since she's performed just as well. Yumiella then comments it's nice of them to not post every student's results. Patrick adds that it's because it'd look bad if the heir to some powerful noble became known as an idiot. Speaking of idiots, Eleonora then comes over because she needs to talk to Yumiella. In her room, she asks Yumiella to help her study so she can pass the makeup exam. Yumiella wonders why she doesn't just ask any of the other girls in her clique to help, but Eleonora explains she unfortunately did the best out of all of them. However, Yumiella knows they're lying to Eleonora to try to make her feel better. So, Yumiella takes on the task of helping Eleonora study. She soon realizes though that Eleonora is devastatingly unfit for studying. Even with only a few things to memorize, Eleonora still seems to have a terrible memory, but learns just as quickly that Eleonora can memorize history as long as it involves Prince Edwin and his relatives in some way. And come to think of it, Eleonora can learn about anything as long as she's interested in it, especially with her impressive knowledge of perfumes. Yumiella then has Eleonora memorize things in respect to Edwin's lineage, with such facts as King Silas was Prince Edwin's grandfather's grandfather, a man named Cliff who successfully implemented large-scale irrigation in the town of Matlock being Edwin's great-grandfather's younger brother. And Eleonora thanks Yumiella for helping her understand things with the various stupid ways of remembering things in relation to Edwin. Sometime later, Patrick thinks it was good of Yumiella to help Eleonora pass her exams, but Yumiella finds it depressing that she might have to help her until she graduates. She then asks Patrick if he'd like to go flying with her and Ryu after school. However, he declines, having something else to do. He won't tell her, but he's been heading to dungeons every day by himself with an amulet of growth. The guard wonders if Patrick is training to battle a romantic rival or something, but the guard couldn't be more wrong. There is no rival, only the girl he has to conquer. Heading inside, he remembers Yumiella's words of being only into people stronger than her. And even knowing he might never hit level 99, he wants to get as close to her as possible. While fighting the monsters, he couldn't help but think, why did he seriously have to fall for her? He slashes, determined to be someone who can always be there for Yumiella. He returns back to campus in the evening, all scraped and battered, and Yumiella calls out to him, descending down with Ryu. She's worried because Patrick is injured again, but he tells her no need to worry. But she retorts that she found out where he's been going all this time, making him blush knowing she might have figured him out. However, as he begins to explain himself, Yumiella asks what she's like. She, as in the girlfriend Patrick is seeing, concluding that Patrick has been going out every day on dates with a girl. How does she see him injured equals he's seeing someone? That doesn't make any sense. Oh my god. She thinks his girlfriend is just violent when she's angry. Of course, he begins shouting she's completely wrong. He tells her he doesn't have a girlfriend outside the school. So logically, she concludes it must be a student here. No. He doesn't have a girlfriend at all. How could she possibly think a girlfriend would give him these kinds of injuries? Before he can answer, Ryu begins growling, so Yumiella hops on to take him home, leaving Patrick a little down, thinking Yumiella has never considered him even once. Edwin then appears, and it seems Patrick and him agreed to meet. As Yumiella rides on Ryu, she asks him where he thinks Patrick is going every day. He simply growls, making Yumiella acknowledge he's right? If it were her, she'd be out trying to level up every day, but assumes Patrick wouldn't be like herself. When she heard how Eleonora fawned over Edwin, Yumiella started to think she might really be in love with Patrick. She falls over Ryu, remembering Patrick's answer to not having a girlfriend. Hearing that made her really happy for some reason. The next day, Patrick comes to tell Yumiella he wants her to meet Prince Edwin in the principal's office. They talk privately one-on-one, where Edwin apologizes because he's been rude to her ever since the entrance ceremony. He realized his assumptions had been wrong and improper. Even knowing his dad had already told him she's not the Demon Lord, he just couldn't admit his own mistake in front of his peers. Yumiella forgives him, knowing Edwin and all the other students are just teenagers, and that anyone would be shunned if a central noble didn't like them. She then asks why he's had a sudden change of heart, and Edwin explains it's because Patrick talked to him, offering a new perspective and several stories as of late. Patrick detailed Yumiella's sheer efforts were something none of them could ever hope to match. This made Edwin understand she really was just like a regular person. Edwin admitted to his own fault, believing no one had put in more effort than himself, and inside he was afraid of Yumiella because he thought she wasn't normal. With all those things having been bad excuses, he asks for forgiveness. Yumiella accepts, having been well aware that her existence as it stands defies all logic. She'll accept as long as he lets her help in slaying the Demon Lord, and also if he tells her what Patrick said about her. Edwin details Patrick's summary. He had said she had no interest in things like power and wealth, and that she's too strong to let a bad reputation bring her down. Basically, she's a good person. Also crazy, acting like a nutcase with everything she does being questionable, but good-natured and simple-minded. Hearing that part made Yumiella begin to flare up. Later, Principal Ronald asked how Yumiella's talk with Edwin went. She remarked that Edwin seemed like a completely different person, jesting as if that Edwin was a double or something. Ronald responds that Edwin's been a little off since the entrance ceremony, but he's always been a very understanding young man, and is glad he's finally back to his senses. Edwin wouldn't listen to him or the king, and is happy Patrick was able to talk some sense into him. Ronald then says it's finally time for Yumiella to help Edwin's party level up. The three boys have been more fired up about leveling since she stomped them at the martial arts tournament, but Alicia, always being coddled by them, can never seem to get an attack in. So Ronald sends Yumiella to where Alicia has been training all on her own, and we see her shooting her pathetic magic, missing a target constantly. Yumiella knows Alicia being weak is a definite problem, as she needs Alicia to defeat the Demon Lord, or else she might be forced to marry Prince Idiot. Yumiella calls out to Alicia and sees she still looks at her like she's seeing a monster. She invites Alicia to a dungeon in the town of Various for training. Knowing Various has a dungeon with dark attributed monsters, and with Alicia's light magic, she should be able to level efficiently. But the thought only freaks Alicia out further. Alicia refuses, thinking she isn't ready for that, and runs away. At school, the students talk about how Alicia has been missing since yesterday evening. Patrick briefs Yumiella on how Prince Edwin and the teachers are all out searching for her. Edwin's gang comes to ask if Yumiella knows anything. Yumiella of course doesn't, but that last thing she heard was that Alicia felt troubled not having gained any levels at all. Oswald concludes she must have been kidnapped by supporters of the Demon Lord, and the three boys run off to search for her again. Somewhere in a forest, we see Alicia walking with a blank look in her eyes as if she's been possessed. Yumiella and Ryu have been searching for Alicia. Spotting her in a forest, they descend upon the mesmerized Alicia. Yumiella shakes her, knocking Alicia out of her trance. However, she shrieks, seeing the darkness emanating off of Yumiella and Ryu. Alicia eventually realizes it's actually Yumiella, but doesn't understand why she herself is out here. Yumiella breaks down the situation a little, explaining she was looking for Alicia because she was worried about her. She thought maybe when she told Alicia about training in the dark dungeon of Various, the idea might have scared Alicia off into leaving the school. However, Alicia acknowledged Yumiella to be correct in that she herself needs to get stronger. She can't keep holding Edwin and her friends back. She explains this has happened to herself a few times now. She'd just suddenly begin doing things she never imagined doing without realizing it. The first time was when she received the Royal Academy's recommendation to enroll. They'd heard a rumor that Alicia could use light magic, so the school sent someone to recruit her in person. She at first said she couldn't and turned them down, but as she listened to the recruiter talk, she was overcome by the feeling that she needed to enter the academy. And the next thing she knew, her body was compelled into signing the paperwork. It also happened at last year's martial arts competition, after Yumiella had given her advice. She only had a vague image of the spell in her head. However, when her turn came, the spell's name, Sun Rain, suddenly flowed from her mouth. It was as if her body acted of its own free will. And then, before the party at the end of the school year, she invited Edwin outside without realizing it. Yumiella remembers because the other two boys were making a fuss with Edwin and Alicia missing. The idea of actually asking the prince to leave the party with her made Alicia blush. She couldn't comprehend how she was even able to do something so bold. She remembers doing these things, but she felt as if she wasn't the one doing them. Yumiella asks Alicia if she's told anyone about this, but Alicia hasn't because she doesn't want anyone to worry. With all this information, Yumiella thinks she herself has come up with the right hypothesis. They'll all fight together and defeat the Demon Lord. This world is basically the ultimate game Light and Hero, and Alicia is still the heroine of that game. And all these events that transpired are necessary to advancing the game's plot. So Alicia is doing what the game's plot compels her to do. Leveling is also necessary for defeating the Demon Lord, so the game is forcing her to do that as well. Ultimately, Yumiella feels no need to explain any of this to Alicia. She doesn't want to confuse the poor heroine, bound by her fate. Yumiella begins telling Alicia that she's someone with a strong sense of responsibility, making the excuse that Alicia's body must get so stressed that it acts on its own. That raw talent allowed Alicia to use a spell that she never used before, and that young people like Alicia are unbalanced in both mind and body. Perhaps her unconscious actions will stop in time. These lies somehow brighten Alicia up. She feels a bit better now, and is now determined to return to Edwin and the others. But wait, since they're here, Yumiella suggests they do a bit of leveling in the dungeon. Alicia isn't excited to hear this. However, Yumiella brought an amulet of protection, just in case, believing that once Alicia tries leveling, she'll see how much fun it is, with Yumiella's face somehow seeming not so convincing. But Alicia reluctantly accepts. At the dungeon gate, the guards block their way, saying it's too dangerous, even for Royal Academy students. They state the two need permission to enter, so Yumiella shows Ryu as permission, which frightens the guards upon seeing the black dragon, and he goes on to put one of them in his mouth, like usual. The guards run away completely scared, but Yumiella wonders why they left. Did they have important business to attend to? Only Alicia knows that's not why. The two enter the dungeon, and with the first flurry of monsters, Alicia starts screaming and sporadically shooting light magic. Yumiella thinks that because of the large quantity, it just makes it easier to target monsters dead on without even aiming, lecturing Alicia on the efficiencies of leveling while she frantically fights for her life. Yumiella guides Alicia further into the dungeon, and upon spotting new monsters, Alicia screams but eliminates them. Yumiella tells her the thrill of dungeons is that the deeper they go in, the stronger the monsters get. However, Alicia doesn't want this kind of thrill. This only gets worse for Alicia, learning this dungeon has 50 floors. But Yumiella is pumped, because there will be a reward at the end. Alicia uses a new spell to defeat some chickens, but didn't comprehend until Yumiella explains she just gained the ability to use a new spell. Alicia uses it to defeat a chimera, and as Yumiella goes to pick up the reward, she's a little saddened since she herself can't experience the joys of leveling anymore, being maxed out. Then suddenly, Alicia falls down a pit that Yumiella forgot about. Whoops. Alicia lands on some disgusting monster and blows it up. She sustains some injury, so Yumiella offers to heal her. Alicia tries to reject it. However, Yumiella enforces her disgusting dark heal on her. They make it to the 50th floor, and the final enemy. Alicia is scared out of her mind because she doesn't want to die. So logically, Yumiella gives her a little shove. Whoops. She shoved too far because of her strength, and Alicia narrowly dodges the monster's attack. Alicia tries Sun Rain, but it does nothing. Unfortunately, that spell doesn't have any offensive power. The monster then casts Dark Breath, blowing Alicia back. So Yumiella uses her Yumiella Punch, defeating the monster and receiving the treasure. Luckily, the Amulet of Protection triggered, reviving Alicia, but it only works once, so she can't use it again. They then open the rewards, and lucky for Alicia, it's more Amulets of Protection. A light that Alicia has never seen before begins embracing the two, which Yumiella explains dungeons transport the victors to the surface upon completion. Afterwards, Alicia thanks Yumiella for helping her train, but isn't happy to hear Yumiella telling her to put on another Amulet of Protection and to get back in the dungeon. After all, how can Alicia say she conquered it if she couldn't solo the final boss? Alicia faints upon hearing this. They repeated the dungeon over and over, and Alicia's levels rose. She acquired new spells. The efforts of someone getting strong made Yumiella so excited. She felt, though, that Alicia's leveling rate seemed abnormal, wondering if the game's plot was behind this. But still, Alicia couldn't solo the boss on her own yet. The treasure chests she earned through several attempts contained a dark attribute bastard sword, something that Yumiella decided to keep, since Alicia would have trouble using it. They also got a wind spear, something that Yumiella plans to give to Patrick as a souvenir. On a particular attempt, Alicia protected herself with a light barrier and blew the dungeon boss away, finally succeeding. The reward chest contained a light sword, a powerful weapon that would be useful in the fight against the Demon Lord. Yumiella tried reaching out towards it, but was surprised to see it react badly to dark magic, so she gave it to Alicia. After all that, Yumiella was certain Alicia learned the fun of leveling. However, Alicia definitely still didn't see it, being completely worn out. With extra time left before the school curfew ends, Yumiella suggests they go scout the Demon Lord's location. But wait. Alicia questions how Yumiella knows where the Demon Lord is. Flying on Ryu, Yumiella makes the excuse that her level 99 instincts just tell her where to go. On the ride there, Alicia seems frightened, making Yumiella ask if she's afraid of animals or heights. That's not it. Maybe it's the impending cyclone that blows her off Ryu. But he easily catches her and puts her back on his back. It seems that no matter how hard they search, the game's plot is preventing them from reaching the Demon Lord. Yumiella can't even sense him, even though she knows he should be here. So they decide to head back to the academy. At the school entrance, the students have been waiting for Yumiella and Alicia's return. Alicia hugs right on to Edwin, telling them all how she was so scared. Patrick asks Yumiella where she found Alicia. However, Yumiella tells him the story is too long to explain and tosses him the wind spear. Yumiella then gives Alicia all the magic stones she earned, which is heavy even for William. Edwin then thanks Yumiella for finding her, and even Oswald, surprisingly. But Yumiella doesn't think she did anything deserving of thanks. However, Ryu is hungry, so Yumiella asks if anyone has anything he can eat. Oh, it seems he found a nice light mage treat, making Yumiella happy knowing Ryu has grown fond of the time Alicia has spent with her. But I bet that's not what everyone else is thinking. The next day, upon blowing up the training dummy, Alicia's friends are flabbergasted that she's stronger than all of them now. She smiles at them because she worked so hard, and that Heroine's smile makes the boys blush, but now more determined to catch up to her. Yumiella tells Patrick Alicia is probably past level 50 now, but still not strong enough to defeat the Demon Lord, so she plans to take Alicia to a harder dungeon, assuming she now knows the fun of leveling. And hearing this only further reinforces the idea to Patrick, and he needs to get stronger. The day begins with Alicia and her companions training, displaying their level increases. She was able to get a new staff with all the magic stones she sold the other day. In the academy halls in the evening, a man from the kingdom's magic tool development team invites Yumiella to assist with an experiment. He pulls out their latest model of magic sealing shackles for Yumiella to test, and he wants to see if they can hold Yumiella's magic. She gradually raises her magic, and it seems she can't use it at all. The man then calls his cronies. Oh no, they're looking to kill her and escape. He's not from the kingdom's magic tool development team. How could she fall for it so easily? But it doesn't matter. Yumiella easily breaks the shackle chains because her physical strength is also level 99. The man and his goons then switch gears nervously, telling her, oh, it's just a joke, it's just a prank. We appreciate your assistance with the experiment. But that doesn't fly with Yumiella, and the men get taken away. Principal Ronald remarks that those guys are pretty stupid, going after the strongest mage in this country. They don't know the identity of those men or where they're from, but Ronald warns her to be cautious, as someone from the school must have led them there. 2 nights later, another assassination attempt on Yumiella's life. However, when the assassin strikes, he realizes his dagger is bent. Then, with Yumiella awake, he freaks out. Sitting with Patrick in the afternoon, she warns him to stay away from her since she's been nearly assassinated twice now. Patrick is worried though, not about her dying, after all, she's the strongest. He's worried they don't know the identity of the person targeting her. Yumiella realizes the truth in his words. Somewhere deep inside, she might feel a little hurt, but the way it felt when she was attacked, it's all familiar to her somehow. She suddenly realizes those guys gave her the same feeling as when she was hunting monsters. I mean, it's kill or be killed when fighting monsters, right? Then arrows suddenly fly their way and Yumiella quickly catches them. She tells Patrick to hide as she hunts down the assailant. She's mad. Targeting her alone is one thing, but if he'd hit Patrick, death would have been the proper answer. Later, Yumiella decides to stroll out in town, because staying at school she'd be putting the other students in danger. She notices children fighting with sticks, with one pretending to be the Demon Lord and the others being the heroes. She notices a boy with dark hair who seems left out. It is unfortunate that people in this kingdom are detested for having black hair, something Yumiella is all too familiar with. People doubted her level and even spread rumors that she was the Demon Lord. At that point, she began to believe it was about more than just her hair. She goes up to the boy and learns that he's not being excluded, he's just self-conscious about his hair color. So Yumiella shows him her hair that is as black as the night. But regardless, she still has friends, and has been finding more people she can talk to. Everyone avoided her at first, but little by little, the distance has been closing. The boy thinks that's cool, however, he doesn't have the guts to make friends himself. Yumiella then tells him that people came to her, luckily, as she had almost given up on getting close to anyone, but thinks maybe if she had approached people herself, it wouldn't have taken so long. Some rough-looking men appear, specifically looking for Yumiella Dolkness. She takes the boy to a safe distance as the men brandish their weapons. When the men come to attack, she traps them in dark bind, and all the boys watching think she's so cool. She tries to ask who sent the men, but they just say they have no idea, as the guy who paid them hid his face. Yumiella isn't done questioning though, as she takes the men into a back alley. Back in her room, Yumiella details having threatened the men, but they really didn't seem to know anything. Looking at her tea, Yumiella notices something and asks Rita if the leaves were different than usual. She offered Rita to taste it, but Rita falls, begging Yumiella for forgiveness. Yumiella could tell the tea was poisoned. However, Rita felt no choice as they'd taken her little sister hostage. One dose in the poison would have been lethal, so Rita used 5. She's also the one who led the assailants to the academy. It was directed by the master, Yumiella's father, Count Dolkness. Yumiella figured that was a possibility. She learns Rita's sister works at the Count's mansion in the capital, so Yumiella is gonna go rescue her. The two take flight on Ryu, so Rita can lead Yumiella to the Dolkness manor. They find Rita's sister, Sarah, who's glad to see them, but she doesn't seem aware that she was being held hostage. With that, Rita swears her life to serve Yumiella. But Yumiella isn't done with this place yet. She enters a room, telling a couple good evening. As they question who she is, they're surprised to find out she's their daughter. The same daughter they tried to use for a political marriage and then kill. Now meeting them though, Yumiella learns she doesn't actually detest them that much. They're certainly not the greatest parents, but if they'd spoiled her in her childhood, she wouldn't be who she is today. The Count is upset that those losers failed despite paying them tons of money. He admits attempting on Yumiella's life because she betrayed them. He accuses her of working with the king's faction to prepare for war, that she stole the plan the anti-king faction came up with. They've been deeply ashamed because Yumiella took the enemy's side. Yumiella didn't know what was going on at first, but now she understands. The kingdom is preparing its military for the Demon Lord's invasion. The extremists must have been mistaken that as preparation for war with another country, since the Demon Lord's return is still a secret. The anti-king faction feared the dispatch of troops were to empower the king's faction, and with the king taking a liking to Yumiella, along with her refusing all proposals from the anti-king faction, only furthered this. Her parents thought assassinating her was better than handing her over to the enemy. Yumiella explains there is no war with another nation, and she doesn't plan on taking part in a war either. Her father gets upset hearing that, because if she earned fame in battle, the Dolkness family would earn a central position. Her parents don't want to be ridiculed as wannabe central nobles anymore. Yumiella asks why they don't just return to their domain. It might be a better idea for him to take care of where their people are. However, he refuses, having left an administrator in charge of it, believing all they need to do is collect taxes there. Plus, her mother hates the idea of living in the countryside, and hates that she had to have a child with black hair. Yumiella realizes these two are hopeless, both as nobles and as humans. She tells her father to yield her title to her. He can refuse, but were he to die, she'd become Countess anyways. Count Dolkness calls the guards, but Yumiella reminds him there isn't a single guard that could best her. He scolds her for threatening him. However, Yumiella isn't going to listen to a man who sent assassins after his own child. She summons her black hole and asks them to choose now, house arrest or honorable death. She doesn't really intend to kill them, but continues her threats. So, her father yields, begging for his life. Later, speaking with the king, he asks Yumiella why she wanted to take over her domain. She answers that she wanted to put an end to discrimination on those with black hair, and felt it would be best to do so from a very visible position. She knows it might not happen right away, but she'd like for it to lessen, much like how Prince Edwin had lessened his discrimination of her. Sitting with Patrick, she expresses how she learned she doesn't have it in her to kill someone. This warms Patrick's heart. She spared her parents and even captured the assassins instead of killing them. Patrick is impressed she took up the role of Countess. She explains she felt inspired all because of a boy, and hearing Yumiella mention a boy freaks Patrick out. She clears the misconception by explaining it's a 10-year-old boy who felt inferior because of his black hair. With Patrick relieved, Yumiella tells him she wants to change society for the better, and he agrees to do what he can to help her. So, Yumiella needs Patrick to stay by her side, since she needs someone to inform her about the world, and she also needs to start thinking about a successor, making Patrick blush, reiterating successor. So she asks him if he'd like to be her adopted son? This definitely stunlocks Patrick. With him being a second son, Yumiella believes he doesn't need to inherit his household. He shouts that she's not adopting him. Oh man, Yumiella doesn't get how Patrick feels at all. She just thinks it'd be nice if they became family. Oh, she promises not to pick on Patrick's future wife or anything. Yeah, that must be what he's worried about. But of course it isn't Yumiella. The seasons changed and the time of the harvest came. The Kingdom of Valschein's Foundation Day festival was held, where the king announced the impending return of the Demon Lord, and that they've already made preparations to combat him. Knight Captain Adolf will serve as the army's supreme commander against the monsters, and Prince Edwin will lead a small, elite force to fight and defeat the Demon Lord. That night, Yumiella reflects on her time to take center stage, hoping this lessens the discrimination on those with black hair even just a little bit. Patrick meets her, surprising Yumiella with the fact that he's made it to level 60 and can see from far away distances now. This puts him at the same strength as Captain Adolf. Yumiella now knows what he's been doing after school, going into dungeons whenever he had time, using an amulet of growth. With Yumiella concerned since without a protection one, he would have been in danger. She knows she suggested a growth amulet for better EXP, but if anything happened to him, Patrick feels the same way every time she does something reckless. She apologizes, telling him she'll try to be less reckless from now on, but isn't quite sure what she's done that is reckless. Patrick then asks if he can join the Demon Lord fighting unit, but she denies him as his strengths would be better utilized in large group combat. He's better at fighting against the army of monsters, so he accepts. She then asks him why he was in such a hurry to raise his level, and he responds it was to become stronger than her. But why? Was losing to her in class all the time so upsetting? He then recalls the time the guy had asked her to dance at the end of school year party, when she told the guy she's only into men who are stronger than her. She was flabbergasted. She explains it was just an excuse to turn the guy down. She doesn't actually feel that way. Patrick figured that was the case, but felt that if he wanted to be by her side, he needed to be strong enough. Yumiella then says they should play rock, paper, scissors. However, he's not sure where this is coming from, and it's so dark he can't even tell who won. She tells him he did, even though we could see he didn't. He must be right. She really does like people who are stronger than her. Patrick then grabs her shoulders and they go for a kiss as the fireworks boom. Yumiella wonders if Patrick had lied about it being too dark to see. With the new school year beginning, the invasion by the Demon Lord's monster army was confirmed. High-level students from the Royal Academy were chosen to join the military. They were more than expected, most likely because everyone had been leveling so efficiently. And Edwin's force headed directly for the Demon Lord's stronghold, with the final battle about to commence. With the return of the Demon Lord, an army of monsters began advancing on the kingdom of Valschein. An alliance of the kingdom's forces and nobles led by Captain Adolf and select students makes their way to intercept, all while Edwin's punitive force heads directly for the Demon Lord's castle to slay him, with Yumiella wearing an amulet of protection after being prodded by Patrick to do so. The battle between the Demon Lord's forces begins, with Patrick casting an earth wall and easily dispatching a dragon. He's currently one of the most fearsome warriors in the joint army. Edwin's group arrives at the Demon Lord's castle, with Alicia's light as their trump card. Although, Yumiella is more interested in who Alicia likes the most here, which gets all the boys blushing. She apologizes, however, as she was just trying to ease everyone's nerves. As they head in, Yumiella sends Ryu to Patrick, knowing since he's a monster, he could actually fall under the Demon Lord's control. And inside the castle, Oswald wonders why it exists in the middle of nowhere. Edwin explains this area used to be a domain under the control of a certain noble, but bizarrely, there's no mention of them in the royal records. He scoured through old manuscripts and records from all over the kingdom. That time he had snuck into Alicia's dorm room was another part of this search. They enter the final boss's room, but oh no! Yumiella pulls Edwin away because it's a trap that ensnared Alicia, William, and Oswald, and we see the Demon Lord laughing at the foolish humans. Yumiella and Edwin take their battle stances. However, the Demon Lord begins to strike their friends. But then, Yumiella is able to break them out with her dark flames. Alicia, William, and Oswald launch their attacks, only for the Demon Lord to appear unscathed. He launches a whipping counterattack that breaks the three's amulets of protection. It looks like their levels weren't high enough to fight the Demon Lord head on. As the Demon Lord approaches, Yumiella draws her sword. He's actually impressed she was able to break his binding spell and with her usage of dark magic. He asks her to abandon these silly humans and work with him instead. She declines, so the Demon Lord grips Alicia by the neck. Edwin tries to save her, only to get pierced by the Demon Lord's Shadow Lance spell, breaking his amulet of protection as well. The hero's party seems all defeated except for Yumiella, so she begins her fight with him, but oh man, he's using Alicia as a shield. Which Yumiella predicted, but it doesn't matter since Alicia's light is resistant to darkness. Yumiella finds an opening to cut the Demon Lord, revealing a handsome face. He's still excited about her power and asks Yumiella once again if she wants to come to his side. Yumiella still refuses, only for the Demon Lord to remark that due to her hair color, she must have some connection to the former human he was. With Edwin's party astonished to hear the Demon Lord was once human, he then reveals the true history of the formation of Valschein's Kingdom, laughing at the idea of the hero and saint defeating him and building the kingdom as history had taught them. Before the kingdom was formed, the lands were embroiled in war, but Valschein's first king unified them and built a new nation, with this man, known as the Demon Lord, to be his closest aide. He devoted everything to the king, yet the king feared his power and sent him to the middle of nowhere. Not only that, they branded him as a traitor and tried to kill him. Eventually, the man's rage and hatred turned him into the Demon Lord, and he launched a counterattack to destroy the human world. The battle raged on for a while, but they eventually sealed him with magic lost to these times, with his rage continuing as he waited for the seal to break. Since Yumiella played the game, she actually knew the whole story. Well, gee, it would have been nice if you told us. She tells the Demon Lord the first king is the only one to blame. However, the Demon Lord rebuttals with the idea that people are ostracized and envied because of their strength. He even heard that black hair was first regarded as a bad omen. While he was battling the king, he believes humans are foolish, no matter the age. And he's totally right, by the way. Yumiella agrees with him on that point. However, the current king and queen accepted her from the moment they met, and with the friends she has now, she has no intention of forsaking them. Even if the people she protected were to one day betray her, she'd just run away. If that brought happiness to them, she'd accept it. She even suggests he run away since he still has time. But the Demon Lord doesn't see this as an option. He lived this long to see his hatred through to the end. He summons a black hole and goes for a direct attack, but gets parried by Yumiella. She cuts him down with a sad look on her face, but he tells her not to be sad because this is what he wanted. With the black hole sucking the castle, Alicia's light is able to protect them. Edwin and friends thank Yumiella, giving her the congrats on being the new saint who saved them. However, she tries to play it off because she doesn't want to marry Edwin, trying to give more credit to Alicia, who pierces her through the back with a possessed look on her face. With Yumiella falling to the ground, Alicia goes for another stab, but as Edwin holds her off, she just tells him to let her go because she has to kill Yumiella. She doesn't know why though, but Yumiella knows the game's plot is compelling Alicia. With the defeat of the Demon Lord, the game's conditions were fulfilled for Alicia to automatically recognize Yumiella Dolkness as an enemy. Luckily, Patrick was right about that amulet of protection, because if Yumiella hadn't been wearing it, she would have died instantly. The boys try to hold Alicia down, but she blows them away with her magic. But then, Yumiella blows Alicia back with hers. Yumiella then tells the boys Alicia must have been cursed by the Demon Lord right before he disappeared, and luckily, all three of them buy this excuse. Alicia gets up again, now more aware of her actions, but she can't stop. She begs Yumiella to run. Yumiella then quickly calls for Edwin to stop Alicia, and when he grabs on, Yumiella tells him to hold her tighter, which gets Alicia a little more to her senses. And Yumiella cheers him on. She then has Oswald and William give their encouraging words too, then tells Alicia to hear the voices of her friends encouraging her, with Yumelia's usual monotone voice telling her to take back the power of love and friendship. Then, Oswald and William begin their confessions to Alicia, only to get beaten by Edwin, who tells her he loves her first. Too bad you guys aren't the prince. With that, Yumiella applauds the love between Alicia and Edwin that broke the Demon Lord's curse, declaring them the new hero and saint. They then get surrounded by the remnants of the Demon Lord's forces, so William and Oswald fight to release their frustrations, and Alicia and Edwin fight with the power of love. Patrick then arrives on Ryu. They make it back to the army camp, with Eleonora walking towards them. Edwin then announces the defeat of the Demon Lord and the people cheer, as Patrick and Yumiella watch. She doesn't feel like standing with them because she'd rather stand by Patrick. Ooh. The kingdom celebrates, and reporting back to the king and queen, Alicia isn't fully exempt from her punishment with her having stabbed Yumiella, but it'll be light since Yumiella vouched for her being cursed. They're also putting off granting the title of hero and saint for now. Yumiella returned to a peaceful life at the academy, where she sometimes spars with William and Oswald at their request. 1 year left until graduation. After that, she plans on returning home to manage the Dolkness domain. But still, Yumiella manages to have fun in her own way, by taking Patrick to dungeons to claim new unfound rewards. Wow, I feel like this ending was satisfying. They tied up the secret relationship between Valschein and the Demon Lord, they solved Alicia getting possessed by the game's plot, and Yumiella and Patrick end up happily together. What more could we ask for? Subscribe for more content. Also, watch this next video. It's me, Comfy T. I'll see you all in the next one.